Hey everybody, so my name is LaPretty and I'm a Dominican Voodoo Spiritualist, and today I'm going to be talking about another Mysterio of love, and her name is Erzulie Dantor. So, Erzulie Dantor, let me move this. Well, y'all done see my room and stuff anyway, so it don't really matter. Just focus on me and what I'm saying. So, Erzulie Dantor is a Mysterio or a spirit who is a part of the Black division in the 21 divisions. You guys know in the 21 divisions is made up of 21 divisions, but is divided into three subcategory divisions. One division is called the White Division, La División Blanca. The Indian division is called La División India, or the Sweetwater Division, or La División de Agua Dulce, and the Black division in La División Negra. And so Erzulie Dantor is a part of the Black division or La División Negra. La División Negra is composed of three spirits. One spirit is Papa Candelo Sedife, the other one is Santa Marta la Dominadora, and the other one is Erzulie Dantor. To those of you who don't know, Erzulie Dantor does have two birthdays or are celebrated in the 21 divisions. There was one birthday of hers that was celebrated in July, but then her other birthday is coming up, I think, on August the 16th. The birthdays for the Misterios or for the spirits really depend on the saint who represents them in Roman Catholicism. And the Black Madonna or Our Lady of Zekokovia is like the image that we all know Erzulie Dantor to be. Her birthday is going to be on August the 16th. And that's the one I honestly feel more comfortable celebrating. I mean, she's still gonna honor your word or honor your prayers or honor your offerings if you serve her on her July birthday or her August birthday. But since her Black Madonna or Our Lady of Czechoslovakia image is the main one that she's seen and known as, I'm going to serve her on that day. So her Catholic spirit, Our Lady of Czechoslovakia or the Black Madonna, her birthday is August the 16th. So that would be her feast day. So Erzulie Dantor, now I'm going to talk about her. So Erzulie Dantor is not only revered in the 21 divisions or Dominican Voodoo, but she's also revered in Haitian voodoo as well. Everybody knows Erzulie Dantor as the mother of Haiti. The reason why they call Erzulie Dantor the mother of Haiti is because when the slaves overtook or overran the plantations and took them over from the French, that's how they became the first free black nation in the Western Hemisphere, was by Erzulie Dantor. So, long story short, there was a high priestess or a mambo named, I'm trying to get the name right. Bukaman was the Hugon. He was a slave that played a part in the Haitian ritual that was done that pretty much gave them the ideas of how to overthrow the French in Haiti. And Fatiman was the name of the high priestess or the Mambo. Cecil Fatiman was the high priestess or the Mambo who had initiated Boukman. Boukman was chosen for this. Boukman was actually a slave from Jamaica, and he was taken from Jamaica and he was brought to Haiti. He never made it back to Jamaica, never returned to Jamaica, nothing. And you guys know, if you know anything about slavery and the African slaves, a lot of them were separated. They were, brought to one island or one part of the United States, and they may have been there for the time being. But if a slave owner bought them, then wherever that slave owner went, that's where they went. And that's pretty much what happened with Boukman. So Boukman was a Jamaican slave, and he was taken from Jamaica to Haiti. This is how you know that this was, foreseen by the Loas. This was his destiny. This was his path, because there was a purpose for him being brought to Haiti. So when he came to Haiti, he was seen as one of the strongest, most powerful, and most hardworking slaves, which was why he was brought over to Haiti. It was one of the reasons why he got picked. Like I said, once again, during slavery, They, pretty much did, African slaves like that. They brought them, they put them up on a plank. If you were seen as strong, you got picked to work in the fields. If you were seen as attractive, you got picked. If you were seen as fertile, or if you were seen as attractive, whether man or woman, you got picked. If you were seen as somebody who was going to pull in, or put in a lot of work, you were going to bring, strength or progress or growth or any type of harvest to the plantation, you got picked. And that was one of the reasons why Bookman got picked. So since he was the one that got picked and he was brought over to Haiti, Haiti was the place that he was meant to be because there was a purpose for him being there. So when he was a slave in Haiti, he met a woman known as Cecil Fatiman. Cecil Fatiman was a Haitian high priestess known as a Mambo. In Haitian voodoo religion, the high priest is known as a Hugan, and the high priestess is known as a Mambo. In the 21 divisions, we call our priestesses Mambo, and we call our priest a Hugan. Sometimes we call them Brujo Bruja, but the official term or the professional term is Mambo and Hugan. And a Bokor, and some people kind of get confused with the Bokor title too. A Bokor is a high priest, but they're more so a majestic high priest. A Bokor, and you could be a Bokor in the 21 divisions and in Haitian voodoo. The thing is that when you're a Bokor, you know a lot of high power magic. You know all the secrets, you know all the digits, the details, transactions, the in and outs of root work, voodoo, and any type of communication that you would be able to have with the Loas on a much deeper level than a Mambo or Hugan could have. So that's that as far as the terminology. Now, when it came to Cecil, Fatima, and Boukman being on the island of Haiti, when Boukman became a Hugan, that's when he started receiving the messages and the powers of the Loa. Then one day, Cecil and Boukman, they gathered the slaves and they had a voodoo ritual, or they had a voodoo ceremony. The Loa that came down was Erzulie Danto. And when Erzulie Danto came down, they offered her a black pig. And the black pig is very symbolic because Erzulie Dantor loves the black pig. They offered her the black pig and she was pleased and she liked the offering. In Haitian cuisine, there is a dish called griot, and griot is fried pork, which is what the pig produces grilled. And so if you offer a black pig, it'll usually be like a black pig's head to Azuli Dantor, or if you offer her grilled, she likes that offering because that is one of her favorite offerings, and that was the offering that was offered to Azuli Dantor during this Haitian voodoo ritual or Haitian voodoo ceremony. So when Azuli Dantor came down, and when they offered her the black pig, she gave them all of the secrets and she gave them all of the ins and outs of the plantations, teaching them how to overthrow the French so that they can become free. But what some people don't know is that this is the reason why Erzulie Dantor cannot speak. When Erzulie Dantor is in someone's head, she speaks in a sound. The reason why she does is because the slaves cut her tongue out of her mouth. They cut her tongue out of her mouth so that she would not be able to tell the secrets of the how can I say it, of the slaves being able to overthrow the French. So they cut her tongue out of her mouth, which is why her daughter Anais acts as her interpreter because she has no tongue to speak. So when they pretty much did this ceremony, this ritual, and they offered the black pig to Dantor, she gave them the ideas, the tools, the blueprint on how to overthrow the French. They did it, they followed through with it, and it worked. So this is why Erzulie Dantor is seen as the highest of all the Loas in Haitian voodoo. This is why she's seen as the mother of Haiti because she was the mother who freed the people of Haiti. So, moving along from that, Azuli Dantor a lot of times is seen as the dark mother, the black mother, Dantor in the wrong, or she's seen as someone who gets vengeance or she gets avenged. A lot of you may know about Fred and Azuli Dantor as being sisters because in Haitian Voodoo, Erzulie Dantor, and Erzulie Freda are sisters. Now, in the 21 divisions, Erzulie Dantor is pretty much her own being, but Metreseli, who is Erzulie Freda in Haitian Voodoo, is sisters with Anaïs Sapien in the 21 divisions. So the sisterhood changes with the religion. So back to Azuli Dantor in her Haitian form. So the way the story goes, and this is how Azuli Dantor got her image and got her claim to fame, and why she has the demeanor and the story that she does. So in Dominican Voodoo, she's her own person, but in Haitian Voodoo, it's her and her sister Erzulie Freda. Erzulie Freda and Erzulie Dantor are fraternal twins. They were born at the same time. They came out the same mother. Their mother is known as Grand Izili or Grandmother Erzulie. In Haitian Voodoo, there are a lot of spirits that have multiples of themselves or different paths. In a lot of African traditional religions, a lot of the spirits will have multiple spirits that come out of that one spirit. Like in Santeria, Ilegua has different paths. Oshun has different paths. Yemaya has different paths. The same thing with the Loas and Haitian Voodoo. Erzulie has Grand Erzulie, Erzulie Mapiang, Erzulie La Frambu, Erzulie Freda, Erzulie Dantor, and so on and so forth. And then you have the Simbi spirits, who are known as the snake spirits, like Dambala Wedo and Aida Wedo. And then in the 21 divisions in Dominican Voodoo, the Misterios have their different paths. One thing I want to say about the Misterios in Dominican Voodoo is that a lot of people don't talk about the multiple paths that the Misterios have in the 21 divisions, mainly because our religion is very secretive. In Dominican Voodoo, you won't find a lot of information online or even on social media or even on TikTok. It doesn't matter how many Mambos or um, Hogans are on TikTok doing what they do, you will never know everything about a Mysterio, because the reason why the spirits are called Mysterios because they are a mystery. They are ever changing, they are ever evolving, and there's always something new and something different to learn from the Mysterios or from the mystery spirit. Another thing about the Misterios is that we call them seres, which are ancestors. So if you have Dominican blood, or if you have Haitian blood, even, because despite how people feel about Dominicans and Haitians, they all come from the same island, which is known as the Hispaniola, but the Taino word is known as Quisqueya. So before Haiti and the Dominican Republic separated, they were the Hispaniola, which is the Spanish term for it. But the Taino word for the Hispaniola is Quisqueya. So back in the day, Haitians and Dominicans were all on the same island. Because, and this is how you know that the cultures are intertwined, is because when you look at Erzulie Dantor, for example, we serve her in the Dominican Republic and they serve her in Haiti too. When it comes to Anacoana, Anacoana is a Mysterio in the Indian division or in the Sweetwater division. When you look at the origins of Anacoana, Anacoana was born in Haiti. She was a cacique or a high priestess in a and she was a part of the Arawak. I don't want to say Taino because everybody thinks that a lot of the natives in the Caribbean were Taino, but they weren't. The Tainos, they were more so in Puerto Rico and some of the other islands. But when it comes to like Jamaica and the Dominican Republic and what's some other islands? Trinidad, and so on and so forth, you had different types of native tribes that were on these islands. I know everybody loves the Tainos, everybody loves claiming Taino blood, but all natives in the Caribbean were not Taino. So, moving along, when it comes to Anacoana, Anacoana, who is a Mysterio in the 21 divisions in the Indian division, she was born in Haiti. Her tribe and her people were in present day Haiti. So, despite how people feel, we're all intertwined. So, the division stuff, that's more so man made. But when you look at the history, the origins, and the spirits and the religion, it's all, combined. Another thing I want to say is with Erzulie Dantor in her story is and Azuli Freda are twins. They're fraternal twins. They came out of the same woman known as Grand Erzulie. So the story goes that back in Africa, they came from the Dahomey tribe in Benin. If you know anything about voodoo, the voodoo birthplace is Benin, Africa. So voodoo comes from the country of Benin in West Africa. And so Erzulie Freda and Erzulie Dantor and Grand Erzulie come from the Dahomey tribe in Benin. And so what ended up happening is that Grand Erzulie was assaulted by a man. It happened in the dark. She didn't know who he was, and she became pregnant. And that's how she gave birth to Erzulie Dantor and Erzulie Freda. Erzulie Dantor came out dark skinned, Erzulie Freda came out light skinned. Their mother, I believe she is a darker woman, but when this happened to their mother and she gave birth to the twins, she never really fell in love again or was never with a man again. But I believe that even though what happened to her, there was a purpose in the conception and the birth of Erzulie Dantor and Freda. So what happened was that there was a war because Freda and Dantor and Ranazili, they are a royal family. They were a part of a kingdom. So what ended up happening was that there was a war that broke out in Benin, and the thing was that the sisters were split. Dantor stayed behind with their mom, Grand Azuli, and she fought the battle. But Azuli Freda was sent up to Spain and she pretty much went to Spain, studied, became acquainted with the arts and whatnot, and she became who she was. She pretty much became a madam. If you know anything about a madam, madams are pretty much what we call streetwalkers or prostitutes. And this is the main reason why Azuli Freda cries. When she went up to Spain, she was very beautiful, very rich, and very successful. But the only way that she was rich and successful was by her sleeping with men for money. She pretty much did what she had to do in order to build her life up, but the reason why she cried is because of what she had to do in order to get what she needed to get. Because if you know anything about Erzulie Freda children, is that a lot of them may be very pretty and may be very romantic, but a lot of them tend to be very sexual as well. And sometimes they don't really have an easy time finding love or being in love or really being in a long term partnership. So, I know that Erzulie Freda is seen as a romantic and somebody who is so lovey dovey and roses and fruit baskets and chocolate and candy, but her love is more so of like an illusion to get you in and to suck you in and get you to do what she wants you to do for the time being. Then when the fuzz is gone, that's it. It's over with. But Erzulie Dantor, on the other hand, is the opposite. Erzulie Dantor is a woman who's not only a warrior and she's not only someone who fights and knows how to defend herself, but she knows what it's like to be rejected. She knows what it's like to be, forsaken and abandoned. Because once the sisters pretty much grew into themselves or their own person during the war, Azuli Freda became who she was in Spain, and Dantor was who she was in Benin. So when the sisters were back together, there were two brothers who were also twins, and they were a part of the Ogu family. It was Ogu Baragri and Ogu Balendio. So if you know anything about the Ogus, Ogu Balendio is Metresli's husband in the 21 divisions, and Ogu Baragri is the husband of Azuli Dantor. So what happened was that there were two brothers that were twins, and it's funny how Ogu Baragri was light skinned and Ogu Balendio was dark skinned. Just like how Freda light skinned, Dantor dark skinned. So what ended up happening was that the brothers were told to choose the sisters that they wanted to be with to marry. What ended up happening was Ogu Balendio first went with Dantor and Ogu Badagri went with Freda, but Ogu Badagri's heart was with Dantor the whole time. And so what ended up happening was that the wedding day for Azuli Dantor had came and Ogu Balendio had left Azuli Dantor at the altar. What ended up happening was that he ended up leaving Dantor for Azuli Freda. Azuli Freda, stole her man, stole her boyfriend, her fiance, and they ended up boom, boom, pow, getting together. But there was a price she had to pay for that. And so what ended up happening was that Erzulie Dantor and Freda, they met up in the park one day. And, they was like, what's up? I know you did this, I know you did that. And boom, boom, pow, they got to hitting each other with the swords. And that is why Dantor has the Trois mark, or the two marks on her face, from the slashes that she got from Freda. But Freda has the dagger in her heart from where Dantor stabbed her in the heart. And, this is pretty much like the get back from, what had happened. And we all know who won. Dantor won because she only had the slashes on her face, and Freda lost because she had the dagger in her heart. And so what ended up happening after this is that Erzulie Freda did end up with Agumbalindio, but she paid a price for it because Agumbalindio was not faithful to her at all. Agumbalindio cheated and went with whatever woman he could find and made a family with whatever woman he wanted to in any land he went to go fight in. Erzulie Freda was hurt by this, but instead of her showing it, she competes with Agumbalindio by getting multiple men herself, which is why Medically has three rings on her finger to represent the three husbands that she has to make up for the hurt that she feels from Ogumalendio not being faithful to her. But what ended up happening was that Ogubadagri, he had love in his heart the whole time for Erzulie Dantor. So what ended up happening, when everything went down and Balendio left her for Freda, Badagri said, you know what, this is my time to be with somebody I really want to be with. So what he did was that he ended up meeting up with Dantor and talking to her and, expressing his love for her. And they fell in love with each other and they got married and then ended up having a whole bunch of kids with each other because T. John Petuo and Anais, they are not the only kids that Erzulie Dantor had. Erzulie Dantor had, I believe, 3 or 4 kids, including T. John Petuo and Anais. But yeah, so that goes to show you that Erzulie Dantor is capable of being loved because in the end, in spite of her being hurt, in spite of her being dogged out and done wrong, she ended up being compensated for her heart by being loved genuinely by somebody who loved her all along. And that was Ogu Badagri. And I'm just saying that because Erzulie Dantor has this reputation where she is a woman who defends men, women, and children, single mothers, men and women in the LGBT community. She's often portrayed as a lesbian. And another thing about Azula Dantor is that a lot of times people like to masculate her and make it seem like, oh, she's a single woman. She's proud to be single and independent. Azula Dantor is independent. She's strong. She's wise. And she's a fighter. But she is loved because she was loved by Ogubadi faithfully and genuinely. So my thing is that when it comes to Azuli Dantor, from my experiences of working with her, because she's my mom in Haitian Voodoo, and so when it comes to Azuli Dantor will take care of you financially. If you are a businesswoman, somebody who is about their business, who is about making money and getting the funds, she will help you out with that. If you are a woman who has been forsaken, abused, betrayed, and backstabbed for no reason, she will avenge those who have done you wrong. So when she wanna, get back at somebody for you, she will do it. Another thing about Azuli Dantor is that she is about respecting authority and respecting people in leadership. One thing I want to say is that when it comes to these spirits, and this is why people who practice voodoo get bit sometimes when they come against certain people using this stuff. Because I'm gonna be honest, and I don't care if I'm telling secrets or not. When you're in voodoo, you have to be careful who you hit. You have to be careful who you aim for, and you have to be careful what you use. Because when it comes to voodoo, it depends on even who you are when you use the loas or the spirits. Because if you are a person that is favored by them, or if you're a person that has high rank in the spiritual world, or if you are a priestess or priestess, they will love you and fight for you to the death, and they will ride with you no matter what you do, who you go against. But if you're not somebody who has favor or permission from the spirits to come against certain people, they're gonna let you fly. They're gonna let you die. They're gonna let you lay down and just get bit or get tore up. And some people call it getting blessed or getting touched and stuff like that, sometimes these spirits will let people touch you. Because if that person you're aiming at is favored by those spirits, or if they have a protection on them, it's going to bounce back, it's going to clap back, and it's going to hit you. And, it just is what it is. And so when it comes to Dantor and even with Santa Marta and some of these other spirits, you have to be careful if you come against people of authority, because sometimes these spirits will not defend you. If they're a person of leadership, of authority, they write your check, or they pay your bills, or they're the one that's letting you eat, come and go and whatnot, they're not going to touch them for you unless they're really, really wrong, or if they really, really need to get got. That's the only time these spirits really come against people in authority, is if they're just dead wrong and there's no ifs and buts about it. So that's pretty much what that is. But if you want to go to Erzulie for love, you can. Because despite what people say about her or talk about with her, she is a woman who's loved. She's a mother. She is a wife. And she's someone who's highly respected. So if you want that from her, she can give you that. So my thing is that when it comes to Azuli Dantor, if you want to find true, genuine love, you can go to her. Azuli Dantor loves red roses. She loves griot. She loves spicy foods. You can give her tortillas sprinkled in chili powder and honey, and you could give her Jean. She likes griot and Jean. If you don't know what Jean is the most famous Haitian rice that a lot of people talk about. It's pretty much made out of mushroom, and what makes it so dark or so black is the mushroom juice when you cook it. But yeah, she likes Jean and griot and other spicy foods, and she likes black coffee, no sugar, no cream. But yeah, so with Azuli Dantor is, one of those ones that you don't want to play with or mess with. But if she is somebody that you want to gain guidance on how to find true love, how to respect yourself and honor yourself, and be a woman of your word and whatnot, then you can go to her for that because she will help you. She'll guide you. There was something else I wanted to say, and it kind of slipped my mind. Yeah, Erzulie Dantor is a very nice spirit. She's a good spirit. Now, when it comes to P. Diddy, this is another thing. A lot of people know of her now because of P. Diddy. P. Diddy had the tattoo on his back, of Erzulie Dantor and whatnot, and he practices. And that's something I want to talk about too with tattoos. What people don't understand, and this is why sometimes religious people or Christian people don't like tattoos, because they feel like you're making a pact with your blood, or they feel like you're making a covenant or a promise to an unknown entity with a needle with intentions coming in contact with your blood. But a lot of people who practice Haitian voodoo and the 21 divisions, and even in Santeria, they have tatted veves, or they have tatted symbols from the Orishas tatted on their body. It's a known fact that when you tattoo a Misterio, a Loa, or a Veve on your body, you made a pact, you made a contact, you made a connection with that Veve or with that symbol from that spirit. A lot of times people, they will anoint those spirits on those Veves on their bodies to activate that. So when you tattoo any spirit, Orisha, Lucifer, or Santa Muerte, or the Misterios, or the Loas on your body, you're making a connection, or you're making a compact with that spirit. And so since that intention with that ink has now been it came in contact with your blood, you're connected to that Loa by blood. Because one of the reasons why in voodoo, and Woo Lady, everybody been talking about Woo Lady, but she know what she be talking about, because I was in one of her lives and she was talking about voodoo, and a lot of the stuff that she said was true. Because when it comes to voodoo is very pure and it's very authentic, which is why when it comes to, Haitian people, Cuban people, Puerto Rican people, Dominican people, anybody that has Caribbean blood in them, that's why they are so psychic. That's why they are so intuitive, and that's why they are so clairvoyant. Because the thing is, and this all goes back to slavery, when it came to the slaves that were brought over to the Caribbean and the slaves that were brought over to the United States, there were two different experiences. The slaves in the Caribbean, they got more freedom. They did. And the slaves in the United States, they didn't get as much freedom. And what I mean by that is that when the slaves came to the United States, they had to assimilate fast. They couldn't speak their African languages, they couldn't wear the attire, they couldn't practice the religions or none of that. Then when they came here, okay, you black, you're whatever you are, you're a slave, you get out to the field, da, da, da. And that's what they did. And we see that, with Roots and um Queen and all these other like slave movies and stuff we've seen that happened in like the mainland United States, but when it came to the Caribbean, it wasn't like that first off in the Caribbean. Now I will say that slavery had its gruesome periods with the abuse and whippings and stuff. But it is a known fact in the diaspora that the slaves in the Caribbean, they got it way worse than the slaves here in the United States. Because there's actually a letter, and it's known as the Willie Lynch letter. And if you know anything about slave history, anything like that, Willie Lynch was we don't know if he was real or not. It was just a name they think that people made up to name a letter, or he might have been a real person. We just never knew who he was. But Willie Lynch was a slave owner from the Caribbean. And they said that in this letter, there was like slave bylaws that had some of the worst, gruesome types of punishments you could think of for a slave. So even though the slaves in the Caribbean, they had more freedom than the slaves in the mainland United States, they got it way worse than the slaves did here. But moving along. So with slavery in the Caribbean, they were allowed to speak their native languages. They were allowed to practice their African traditional religions, and they were allowed to be who they were when they came to the island. Because when you think about it, Palo Mayombe or Palo, which is another African traditional religion, was actually on mainland Cuba before the slaves who practiced Ifa got there. Which is why like Palo is so potent and it's so like pure, and it's kind of rare to even find like, legitimate elders. Sometimes I know you have a lot of tatas and paleros out now, but there's a lot of secrets, and a lot of those things are not told on social media, even in books. That's because it's one of the oldest ancient languages in the diaspora. So Palo came to Cuba way before Ifa did. And so what ended up happening was that in the Caribbean, when the slaves were practicing their traditions, they became too powerful. They became too prosperous, and the slave masters started seeing it. The ceiba tree is one of the most sacred trees in African traditional religions. One thing you'll notice about the ATRs is that plants, roots, and herbs are very important. This is why Jamaicans and Trinidadians and even with Dominicans, that's why like people with that lineage are so keen on drinking tea when you're sick, rubbing yourself down in some type of herb rub, or taking some type of herbal bath, or taking some type of um or taking some type of spiritual bath, is because roots have spirits. Roots are spirits. Roots have power, roots have ancestry, and roots have voices, which is why in voodoo, whenever you dispose, I know I'm telling a lot, but I'm just feel led to tell it. But whenever you dispose of your offerings to a spirit, you leave them at the bottom of a tree. The reason why you leave them at the bottom of the tree is because the tree is the way of life. A tree represents, fruitfulness, prosperity, life, and when it dies and withers away, it represents death. And also, when you dispose of your offerings, you return them back to where they came from. A lot of the spirits are the four elements of life: earth, wind, fire, air, and water. And so when you pick up something that comes from the earth, you return it back to the earth. And even in Christianity, when a person passes away, they say ashes to ashes, dust to dust, from whence you came, from whence you returned. And so that's pretty much what we believe in voodoo. So I say all that to say this is that um, when the slave masters they saw how the slaves were so prosperous, they cut down the trees, like the ceiba tree that was the most sacred, as a way of letting the slaves know, okay, you get too much, you can't be more powerful than we can because we're supposed to be over you. And so when that happened, that's when they started oppressing them with Roman Catholicism. The slaves got smart and they disguised the spirits with the Roman Catholic saints, which is why in the ATRs, like in Haitian Voodoo in the 21 divisions, and even with the Orishas, there are Catholic saints. So no, it's not whitewashing. No, they're not trying to erase the face. That was the way that the slaves preserved and saved the spirits from disappearing and erasure. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, love, share, and leave positive comments in the comment section. But most importantly, subscribe and come to my store here in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. My name is LaPretty. I'm known as the Dominican Voodoo Spiritualist. I do readings as well as spiritual work for people. And my shop is located at 8011 North Point Boulevard, Suite 106, Winston-Salem, North Carolina, 27106. And I am open on Saturdays from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Have a good day.